we are looking into Savitri from the point of view of the stanzas as present in the text. Stanzas, that is a 4-line sentence. We shall be going stanza by stanza and try to see the continuity of the theme as that would emerge from the stanza sequences. The opening stanza is 1.2. Across the path of the divine event, the huge forwarding mind of night, alone in her unlit temple of eternity, lays stretched immobile upon silence march. In the very first stanza, in the second sentence of the epic itself, is posed the problem the epic is going to resolve. The problem posed for epic appears in the second sentence, that across the path of the divine event, there is somebody sitting there and blocking its passage. The divine event is prevented to go forward, to move forward, because of someone standing as an obstacle on the way. What that obstacle is, it is the huge forwarding mind of night. It is the mind of night which is blocking the passage of the divine event. This mind of night, rather this night, is lying stretched in her unlit temple. She is lying stretched in her unlit temple, and she is blocking the passage of the divine event. The temple is built upon the banks of silence, upon the banks of Swapna and Sushupti, of dream and sleep. It is on the banks of dream and sleep that this temple is present, and it is in that temple that the mind of night is lying across the path of the divine event. What is that divine event? The far off divine event to which the whole creation moves. The divine event is the thing that takes the creation towards its future. The far off divine event to which the whole creation moves. That is what Tennyson says in one of his poems, Memoriam. This whole creation is moving to the divine event, but the divine event of Savitri is an event of the manifestation of a new world here in this mortal creation. And it is that aspect which is kind of quintessenced in the phrase, across the path of the divine event is standing the mind of night, that there is a blockage, there is an obstacle, there is a hindrance across the far of divine event, moving towards a whole creation is not present in Tennyson. And therefore, Tennyson does not see the real problem of creation. It is here in Savitri that the problem is taken up immediately in the very second sentence, that yes, the divine event has to move towards a whole creation. Yes, it has to move, but it does not move. It cannot move. It will not move. It is unable to proceed because the mind of night is blocking its passage. This mind of night is the physical mind governed, dominated under the full sway of darkness, of inconscience, of night. The physical mind, the material mind, receiving the power of darkness, it is that which is coming as a stumbling block for the progress of the divine event. This mind of night was a necessity in the sequel of things. In the sequel of things, it had to appear. When there was the utter void, the absolute void, total void, that nothing could come out of it, that a seed was sown in it, that the Divine Himself plunged into it and stationed Himself in the void. He stationed Himself in the void. It is that presence of His, it is that desire of His, it is that urge of His to come out of the void in some way for the appearance of a new creation, that He is stationed there. Because that desire is there, because that plunge is there, that presence is there, that avataric essence is there in the divine void. It is the divine's void, and therefore the divine Himself is present in that form, in the void. And it is that urge of the divine in the void which has brought out by a kind of a strange occult process the inconscience. The void is there, total void is there. The divine plunged in the void. Because of that came out the inconscience. That is a very, very, very major progress that has been made in the beginning. It is certainly a much bigger achievement than a transition from, say, life to mind, or from matter to life. When there was no life in matter, life entered in matter, and life accepted the conditions of matter and expressed herself in matter. So from matter to life, there was a transition. Similarly, there was a transition from life to mind. But these transitions are relatively simpler than the awkward transition from the absolute void to inconscience, as if some kind of a solidity has been established in the void. And therefore, when out of that inconscience something comes out by the power of measurement of mind, of inconscience, it acquires a form. It is that mind of night which gives a fixity to the form, against the all-swallowing power of the void. If something is to appear in the inconscience, there is a hungry void ready to swallow it. Therefore, in order to give stability to that form, the mind of night was formed. It is the mind of night which gives stability to form in the inconscience against the all-swallowing force of the void, of Shunya, the absolute Shunya, the absolute zero. Against that mind of night is a firm rock on which things can be established. But as the divine event proceeds further, moves from inconscience to matter, from matter to life, from life to mind, and from mind to things beyond mind, to the possibility of the spirit expressing themselves in matter. It is this mind of night which is blocking those things to happen. And it is that mind of night which is now lying stretched across the path of the divine event, of the whole creation moving forward. It is that which is coming as a solid block. And it is that block which has to be removed. And therefore, the problem of Savitri is at once fixed here in the very second sentence of the epic. What is the epic Savitri going to do? What is the issue in front of it? In what manner it is going to be solved? That is what is quintessenced in the very opening stanza, that across the path of the divine event, there is a mind of night standing, and it is not allowing the divine event to move forward. Now, therefore, the problem comes down to the presence of the mind of night standing as an obstacle, and therefore, if a power has to attend to that problem, this mind of night has to be displaced, has to be removed, taken off from the path. But all this happens, this mind of night is there, all this is there an hour before the gods awake, before the event takes place. This mind of night is standing there. It was the hour before the gods awake, when the mind of night was standing across the path of the divine event. Therefore, the question arises, is it the mind of night which is really the obstacle? Or is it that because the gods are not yet awake, that the divine event is unable to move forward? Because this is happening before the gods awake. In other words, had the divine waited for an hour when the gods should awake, would things have moved forward smoothly? If the reason in the gods not being awake that the divine event is not moving forward? Or is it that the mind of night is the real obstacle that the things are not moving forward? So the problem boils down to this one. Should the gods be awakened for the divine event to move forward? Or should the obstacle be moved first? That then the gods will awake and things will happen. Perhaps the more fundamental condition is the removal of the obstacle of the mind of night. It is that which has to be displaced first. If that is displaced, and when the gods awake, then from light to light, from power to power, from life to life, from joy to joy, the event can move forward. First remove the obstacle, let the gods awake, and then the divine event will move, not in the night, not in the early dusk, not in the dawn, but it will move in the everlasting day when the gods are always awake, fully awake. Gods, they do not see dreams. Aswapna, they are dreamless. They don't sleep. And it is that which will happen when there is the everlasting day. That is the beginning of the new creation, of the gods becoming awake and things moving forward. If this has to happen, therefore the first condition is remove this mind of night. How that is going to happen, by what mechanism that is going to happen, that is the problem which the epic Savitri has to tackle and has to unravel the mystery of the whole process. Night is sleeping in an unlit temple. There is no light there. There is no lamp burning there. There is no flame there. There is no candle there. It is in that unlit temple the night is sleeping. But behind this night is the eternal sun. Behind this night is the sun. Night cannot be present without the sun. The sun is behind the night. It is that sun which has to come out. And the coming out of the sun, that is the divine event which has to take place. The presence of the sun behind the night is what makes things possible. And how it is going to work out, that is what the epic Savitri is going to unravel in the course of its development, of its presentation. At the moment, what we see here is only the mind of night in her unlit temple of eternity. Yes, she is a temple. She is a goddess. She is to be worshipped. She is necessary there for a certain purpose. She has a function to perform, a role to play. She is there because she is in a temple built by eternity itself. It is eternal who has made a temple for this night here in this creation. So she is there for a certain purpose there, and in a certain sense, a worship has to be offered to her. With her mind of night, with her night, with her mind other, things got stabilized, but now she has to convert that thing into mind of light. Therefore, the problem which is posed in the first quatrain, in the first stanza itself, is a mind of night blocking the passage of the divine event, turning into the mind of light, opening itself to the everlasting sun's brightness, presence, possibilities of the everlasting sun. It is that which has to happen. The mind of night has to become the mind of light. That is the divine event. It is in that direction the divine event is progressing, is moving.